Good evening, everyone. Welcome to World of Legal Research web seminar on how to be a successful legal researcher by Mr. Abhayraj Naik. I'm Dr. Smith Parikh, a senior researcher in World of Legal Research. Mr. Abhayraj Naik is our first speaker today. Abhayraj Naik is an advisor, consultant, and educator based in Bangalore, India. His consultancy and advisory work bring together innovation, research, strategy, design, communication, and implementation. He is currently a visiting faculty at Azim Premji University, where he teaches courses on law and justice in a globalizing world and on climate justice in India. He has also taught interdisciplinary courses on development, law, justice, public policy, and research methods at the National Law School of India University, the Jindal Global Law School, and the Minnesota Studies in International Development India program. Abhayraj is also a co-founder of a new non-profit organization called the Initiative for Climate Action that promotes transformative system change in response to the current climate crisis. His current research includes work on automation, climate action, cities, environmental theory, experiential learning, mobility, leadership, technology policy, and transformation. Abhayraj is a graduate of the National Law School of India University and has done his master's from the Yale Law School. It's a pleasure to have you today, sir, and I would like to pass on the mic to you.
Thank you, Harsh, and thank you, World of Legal Research. Ms. Mr. Parikh, may I request you to just mute yourself, otherwise the audio will come through at your end. So let me just turn on my video and say hello to everybody. I should let you know that I'm in a somewhat precarious situation because it's raining very, very heavily in Bangalore right now, and electricity and power supplies are all disrupted. So let's hope that our webinar continues uninterrupted, and in a sense, I'm able to share my main points with you despite the intermittent internet and power supply at my end. Now, before I get started, I would like to definitely congratulate the World of Legal Research for initiating this activity and sort of taking a bold step in making knowledge accessible to learners, be they law students or practicing lawyers or advocates and professionals who are located within the university space. I think it's a commendable initial venture, and I hope it's the start of many such ventures. I hope we don't stop with one such webinar, but all kinds of interesting offerings for learners will follow after this first effort. So as I said, it's a pioneering first effort. Bear with us in case at my end, in case I have any slip-ups or the webinar doesn't satisfy your expectations. I'm hoping we'll have some useful learning in our time together, and I'm quite excited about this topic that's been given to me, which is, what does it take to be a successful legal researcher? I have had a look at some of the wonderful questions that you all have submitted, and I'm going to try and respond to that in my comments. Just as a matter of housekeeping, questions and comments are very, very welcome. I would urge you to use the Q&A box to raise questions for me, and I would urge you to use the chat window to just network and introduce yourselves and get to know each other. So the Q&A box will make it easier for me to find questions to respond to, whereas the chat box is, in a sense, an opportunity for you all to speak with each other and make connections, maybe even help each other out with information, so on and so forth. So I'm just going to switch my video off now and try and share my screen with you. Just give me one sec. So I hope my screen is visible to all of y'all. If not, now's a good time to let me know that it's not visible. Mitsu, could you just confirm for me, or Harsh, could you confirm for me that uh, the screen is
Help
indeed
with that.
visible?
It is visible.
Fantastic. Awesome. So let me get started with where we want to go with this webinar, right? And uh, I was given a rather difficult question. What does it take to be a successful legal researcher? And we have about an hour and a half in total. We're about 10 minutes in. And I would probably want to share comments for 30 minutes or so before inviting you to raise questions and comments. Now, mm, let's start off with the heart of the matter. What does it really take to be a successful legal researcher, right? And for me, there's lots at play. And obviously, I'm not going to be able to cover all of it in detail, but this webinar has given me an opportunity to identify what I think are the most important qualities when it comes to succeeding at legal research, right? And let me go over them one by one. First and foremost for me, the most important quality of a successful legal researcher is what I call grit. And grit is basically uh, a sense of not giving up, of even if you don't find anything first time, looking again, asking again. In some other context, I describe it as being the kind of researcher who will go to the last page of your Google search results instead of just ending at the first page, right? If you do that, you have grit, and grit is one of the most important things that allows you to outshine the competition, right? Because most people will say, oh, there is no information. Oh, I could only look through 5 pages of search results. Oh, the JSTOR matches didn't come after I searched the first time, so I'm assuming there's nothing on this topic, right? And only a researcher with grit will, in that sense, have the ability to find what he or she wants, despite whatever the circumstances might throw up, right? Connected to the idea of grit is hard work. Okay, so some of y'all in your questions have asked me, is there any shortcut technique to being a successful legal researcher? And while I'm going to give you some shortcut techniques, let me tell you that at the end of the day, hard work is unavoidable at a sustained success in whatever you do. And research in that sense is no exception to that rule. So the harder working you are, the more likely you are to be successful. And the best combination, of course, is both hard work and smart work. Number three, you don't become a fantastic researcher overnight, right? Some of y'all are in your first semester of law school. Some of y'all are practicing for many years. Some of y'all are teaching. And an important message to communicate to all people who are interested in legal research and shining at legal research would be that you really need to practice research to strengthen the muscle of research, right? It's almost like exercising a muscle. And the more you exercise it, the quicker you are and the faster you get. So every chance you get, practicing it is great, right? Finally, connected to hard work and grit is the idea of determination, right? Unless you are keen to get to the other side, I am going to write an article in the next 3 months. I am going to get an O grade for my project. I am going to write the best memo for my boss at the internship. I am going to win the best memorial award at the moot competition. I am going to, if not win, I am going to do better than I have ever done before, right? Unless that sense of determination is there. And in the world of consultancy and performance, which I'm a part of because I work even with companies and help them plan how to sort of keep employees in the perfect state of performance, it's described as a mild state of arousal, whereas you're excited about what the research is going to do. It's sort of, you don't sort of feel, oh, so boring, I don't want to even start. There is anticipation, and that comes initially from both motivation and determination. Next, honesty is an underrated character trait when it comes to being a successful legal researcher, right? And some people achieve short-term success without honesty, but I can success, sustainable long-term success requires a genuine honesty about the limitations of your research, about how much time you spent on it, about where you encountered problems, also an honesty to yourself. That is, my problem is not that I don't, but that I'm lazy. Or my problem is not that I don't have enough time. I have enough time, but it's just that I don't want to spend the time on this, right? And having that honesty as a core part of your character, but also reflected in your writing, right? My research does not answer all questions, but at least it answers one question. My research has looked at data, quantitative data, but the limitations of those data sets are A, B, and C. My research looked at interviews, and I interviewed 25 people, but let me tell you that I had a little bit of a bias even while interviewing the people, and so I asked them leading questions, right? If you share honestly the limitations of your research, you are more likely to be persuasive, right? And so therefore, bring in that sense of honesty, which is connected to a sense of humility, into your research mindset. Next, courage, right? A truly successful researcher is one who does things that other people don't do. You go where others don't go. You see things that others don't see. You attempt things that others don't attempt. And, and for all of those, having courage is important, right? And we're not all naturally born with courage, right? When I was a young student, especially when I was a school student, I was full of fear, underperformance. Someone else is better than me. I can't really do this, right? And how did I learn? I only learned by trying and failing. And failure, unfortunately, has become such a bad word. But a truly smart researcher thinks of failure as a friend, because if you don't fail, you don't learn. And having the courage to fail, the courage to try and fail, hopefully succeed, but sometimes fail, is very important to being a good researcher. Motivation connected to determination. You need to be motivated, otherwise it's unlikely that you will actually carry through on all of the activities that your research project requires. Curiosity, right? Without a sense of curiosity, you won't even discover the right kinds of topics to carry out research on, right? In a sense, the world around you is your playground for research, including legal research. And unless you are actually curious, अच्छा तो ये हुआ, इसका क्या मतलब है, right? This happened, what is the meaning of this? Why did this happen? Why do you think he or she said that? What really motivates these people? Does the same problem exist in other countries as well, or is it only an India specific problem? All of this is key to actually developing a good research mindset, right? Next quality, patience. You need to give your research time to develop. It's almost like a research project is almost like a plant you're growing. You can't just put the seed in the ground, pour some water and say, chalo, where are the mangoes, right? It grows slowly, and with care, it grows healthily and beautifully. And so have patience with everyone. If your librarian is not giving you what you want, if your teacher is not telling you what you want, if your client is not telling you what you want, if your internship boss is not telling you what you want, but most importantly, have patience with yourself, right? You can't do everything in one day, but you can do great things by doing many small things day in and day out. The next quality is creativity, right? Connected to courage, but also connected to, in a sense, curiosity. Okay, so what if I actually try a different way of doing research? I don't just look at case law, I don't just look at statutes, but I go and interview people in my family and ask them what they think about the law. You think that will be useful for my project on tort law or contracts or constitutional law, right? What if I don't write this out? There's so many things to write here. What if I try and visualize it? In fact, let me take a notebook and a pencil and try and sketch it out right now. Hmm? What if I actually am looking at a detailed, complex legal area, let's say the legalization of Bitcoin by the Supreme Court, hmm? or the Supreme Court decision on migrants and the difficulties they were having after COVID. What if I actually write one short imaginary story, a mythical or an imaginary conversation between a migrant and the Chief Justice of India? Is that legal research? Is that a good way of demonstrating what the constitutional issues are, right? And finally, creativity also applies to how you organize your research. What if I don't try to do my writing at the end, but what if on the first day of getting my project topic or the instruction for my internship boss or the moot problem, I start writing on the first day? Hmm? What if we try writing together on a Google document? What if we act like one person is the judge and the other person is a lawyer, and instead of reading and writing, thank God, electricity is back. So I'm happy to report that the webinar will not be interrupted because I was worried that it would get disconnected. Let me briefly reconnect to my Wi-Fi once it powers on, and I'll continue talking there, which is how can I be creative about my workload as well, my work process as well? How can I be creative about my interaction with my teacher, my intern boss, my teammates, my students, right? Whoever you might be, creativity actually creates the ground for your research project, right? So the ground has to be good, or the soil has to be good for your plant to grow well. And creativity creates that healthy soil, because in a creative space, when there's creative energy, all kinds of beautiful things might happen. Okay, so give me one sec. Let me just try making the switch very quickly. Discipline, right? The biggest problem that most students have in doing good research is that they don't have the discipline to do little bit of work every day, right? And I have sort of learned this the hard way. I myself didn't have discipline to do work every day, and I still am quite undisciplined. I have a bit of an artistic style, and therefore my research output is not as great as it could be, and I'm not as successful a researcher as I could be, right? If I actually did my work in regular bits instead of trying to do it all in 2 or 3 days, if I actually completed the full footnote with exact citation format while writing instead of just putting one word, if I actually created an index of resources instead of just downloading the file and saving it in a folder, right? If I actually took notes, we've gotten so lazy that we've stopped even taking notes in class or while reading, right? All of that comes to discipline, and you will not believe how much value comes from a disciplined work habit relating to legal research and writing. Finally, openness, right? You need to be open about what will happen. You need to be open to the idea that, okay, I started by thinking that will be my focus, but now I've learned something and I might change my focus. You need to be open that maybe I'm wrong, and let me actually go back and rechange change again what I wrote. You need to be open to the idea that maybe someone else knows more than you. You might even be a teacher, and you need to be open to the fact that your student might know more than you on one topic, right? Generally, a sense of openness where you are not wedded to one idea, you are not fixed, but you are willing to be persuaded that something else is better. You are willing to recognize that maybe a person who we call an unpad gawar normally, or illiterate person, might actually have very wise knowledge, right? And openness that maybe the Supreme Court is indeed uh, not uh, successful in changing the law, right? Just that idea of openness, or that culture of openness, if you bring it into yourself, and this is the most difficult thing, right? Because we are all uh, trapped by our mental models or the boxes that we have in our head. And that's why we get irritated by some things, we get angry with some people, we do things in a certain way all the time. But the truly great researcher is so open that every research project has its own magic. So what I did for the first project will be different from what I did for the second project, will be different from what I did for the third project, because each project is trying to solve a specific problem or goal. In one case, maybe you want to publish an article. In another case, maybe you're doing your research to write a good exam answer. In another case, maybe you are trying to give your internship boss a good report. In another case, maybe you're doing legal research to actually prepare for your class, right? And each situation will have different requirements. So a successful researcher is open to the idea, and I'm just going to move around because I want to put my phone back on charge, is going to be open to the idea that um, success means different things in different contexts, right? That is, there is no one size fits all approach to success, and one is open to changing their method, their outlook, their habit, their time expectations, their comfort zone, so on and so forth when it comes to what the project requires. Finally, it's not essential, which is why it's at the bottom, but it definitely, if you have it, you're lucky, you're blessed, and you will generally do very well as a researcher. A little bit of luck never hurt anybody, but mentorship, having a good mentor and having a good community of researchers, right? The best learning happens when you're learning with others, right? And for example, why do I come and offer a webinar such as this? I'm already teaching at universities. I have so many research projects to do. I also want to just chill and enjoy the nice Bangalore rains. I come and do these webinars not only because I am some saint who wants to promote learning for others. My selfish motive is also because I learn through such encounters. We are a community of researchers right now, right? And being in this community, getting your questions, answering your questions, keeps my brain turning as well, and I keep learning more as well, right? So a good community is quite important as well. Connected to the hard work, remember that time and energy are involved with doing anything and everything. So it's important to give yourself the time to plan things out, to even take care of yourself. You know, a good successful legal researcher is someone who actually takes care of their body and mind as well. You sleep enough, you eat enough, you exercise enough, you don't overwork, you have some fun in life so that you don't get too stressed. Okay, the journal didn't accept my article, or my boss didn't like it, right? Otherwise, if you don't have the correct kind of energy and you don't give yourself the time, each failure will become something that hurts you and you won't be able to move on. Whereas a successful researcher is constantly moving forward, right? A successful researcher is a lifelong learner. So that was the slide on which I spent the most time. and it's in a sense one of the most important slides. It's a new slide which I've made just for you, and it was useful for me to think about it. But that basically, all of that comes down to the right mindset, having the right mindset as a researcher, identifying the right research problem that you're focusing on, arriving at the right research process, uh, getting the right results, and paying attention to the final result as well. It's as important as all the hard work you put in the process. And again, connected to this mindset, but also connected to the lifelong learning and this idea of constantly moving forward towards greater and greater heights of success, it requires the right learning. Right? I'm going to explain each of these things to you. And at some levels, because we have a mixed audience, at some levels, I'll say things like, that'll be like, Ari, I already know that. Why is he saying it? And I'm saying it because there might be someone here who doesn't know that. And at some levels, I'll be saying things which will be like, whoa, that is pretty philosophical. That's pretty hardcore. That's too complex. Why is he doing that now? And I'm doing that because in our audience, we also have experienced teachers and senior researchers, right? So I'm really speaking to the entire gallery here. If something is something that you already know, good, you can refresh your memory on it. And if something is really complex for you and you're not able to pick it up, that means you have to go back and read about it. You have to do some more research into it. And I'm going to request World of Legal Research to make my slide deck available to all of y'all so that y'all can read it at leisure and benefit from it as well. Now, some of y'all asked me, why is research important itself? Right? Why should we care about research? Uh, why should I attend a webinar on research, right? And let me give you a quick account. So a really good researcher, and this is not only a legal researcher, but a researcher in any area, a really good researcher sees the full iceberg. Hmm? They don't just see the tip of the iceberg, but they see the full iceberg. So at the tip of the iceberg is an event, okay? At so-and-so time in Delhi, some violent riots occurred. There were clashes between religions. The police was involved in violence. University campus saw violence. Event, right? And that's what most people see. That's what we read in our newspapers. That's what's on TV, right? A good researcher, through good research, sees below that event what are the patterns and trends. There's been an increasing communalization of politics in India. There's been an increasing impunity of the police force. There's an increasing pervasive spread of technology. Some people will say that young people are getting radicalized, right? Those are patterns and trends below the event. And then even below that, there are systemic structures, right? Our model of education is such that people do what they are asked to do based on what the TV tells them or what their political leader says. Or our system of media is such that what is sexy and what is controversial sells, and what is actually true does not matter. We're in a post-truth world. That's a post-truth system, right? Our system is such that the courts can't really respond fast. You'll see all kinds of systems below that. And finally, at the very bottom, which is really, really important, are mental models, right? We all have mental models. You have mental models, I have mental models. We interpret the world through mental models, right? For those of y'all who might have seen that Mr. India movie, it's like those glasses you put on that will allow you to see the invisible or will allow you to see certain things. They are the lenses through which you actually apprehend reality. And so understanding people's mental models, right? People in India have a mental model that we need a strong government. People in India have a mental model that young people are always causing disturbance. People in India have a mental model that members of a particular religion are violent. It could be anything, but everybody has a mental model. Hmm? And if you're really trying to change things, changing things at the mental model level will be more successful. It's also the most difficult, right? So if you're a good researcher, you don't just see the tip, but you see the full iceberg. Hmm? And that is why research is important. This is another way of saying what I just said, right? Normal people can only see actions. Uh, A didn't pay B for the laptop that B sold A. Action, right? But good legal researchers will see below that action all kinds of things. They'll see ideas, they'll see norms, they'll see beliefs, they'll see paradigms, they'll see metaphysics, right? Metaphysics or cosmologies might be another way of talking about mental. They might see that it's not that A didn't pay B the laptop that B sold A. They might say that, see that A has an idea that since he bought the laptop from B through an online platform, he can use that laptop for 30 days because it's part of the general contract of that platform. Use your products and then you can return. Or A might have an assumption. Or A might have a belief that company B actually is so disorganized that they don't even see whether they're paid or not. They're more focused on just getting the products out. Or A might have a paradigm or a worldview that company B is a wicked company. And since he has managed to get this laptop from them by sending it to actually not his address but someone else's address, he is striking a blow against evil corporate capitalism by getting the laptop without paying for it, right? Only by doing sustained deep research do you see the full picture. And so your next question will be, Abhayraj, I understand all this, but you're still not answering the question. Why should I know all this? Why should I see the full iceberg? Why should I see the full triangle, right? And that's because knowledge is power, my friends, right? And if you have knowledge, you have the power to do pretty much what you want based on your particular context, right? And so a successful research approach, which involves lifelong learning, also means that you become a very powerful person. And I don't use power in the wicked sense of power. I'm talking about a healthy power, right? It's a power that allows you to solve problems because you see the full iceberg. It's a power that allows you to access opportunity because you've not just seen the event or the action, but you've gone all the way down. You get access to so many other opportunities that other researchers don't even know exist. You get connected to jobs, to internships, to communities, to influential people, to learning contexts, right? Uh, you have the power to empower others, especially if you're a teacher and you're a good researcher. You're constantly bringing in research into your class. It's not that ek baar course bana diya. Once I made a course and I teach the same course for 10 years, right? Before each class, even if I've taught the same subject for 10 years, I would like to do some fresh research. So I can also learn and I can empower my students, right? You have the power to change systems because you know what's really wrong in the system. You know that a mental model, a paradigm is causing the problem in the system. The system relating to environmental protection, the system relating to ease of doing business, the system relating to use of armed force in internal and external conflict, the system relating to contracts, the system relating to land use, the system relating to taxation. It does not matter what subject, there is a system that actually decides how things work. And by being a good researcher, you get the power to change the system. You also have the ability to improve yourself, right? If you're a smart researcher, you're not just doing research on projects and memorials and exam answers and job applications, you're also researching yourself. Why is it that I am not able to do this? How is it that I will be able to combine my interest in environmental law with my interest in technology? Is there a connection there? How can I actually uh, have a more successful life where I am able to produce faster? What are the best tools that are available online for me to be more efficient in organizing myself? Right? All that is accessible to a successful researcher. And finally, you really not just empower others, but you transform others. It could be your classmates, it could be your friends, it could be your colleagues, it could be your employees, it could be your boss, it could be your family members, it could be your teachers, right? You can actually transform others through the power that is contained in the knowledge that is derived at through research. And so you can transform the world. Now, ask yourself this question: are you an andragogical learner or are you a pedagogical learner? Because if you want to be the most successful legal researcher, it would help if you become an andragogical learner, right? An andragogical learner is not dependent on the teacher, the boss, the colleague, the student, but is self-directed. An andragogical learner does not ignore their own life story, right? I told you about my school days when I used to be so afraid, right? So I use my life as a rich resource for learning. Hmm? When I was young, I used to be arrogant, and that actually made me lose out on some opportunities, right? Or when I went traveling once, I saw so and so. You use your own life as a rich resource for learning. Whereas a pedagogic learner, you are someone almost like someone else will use you and make you into a good student, right? An andragogical learner learns from life's tasks and problems, right? So yesterday I was at a webinar where the webinar got Zoom bombed. So the organizers were doing it for the first time. They didn't know how to put the settings in place to prevent Zoom bombing from occurring, and they shared the link, and some really foolish young people thought it was a good thing to disturb people trying to learn about how to improve the world, right? But I didn't feel bad as much as I was like, so ye bhi hota hai, this also happens, what can I learn from this, right? And I decided that the next time I do a webinar, I'll at least inform my webinar hosts that Zoom bombing exists, especially if they're doing it for the first time. I'll help them with their settings, right? So you develop from life's tasks and problems. An andragogic learner is problem-centered or task-centered. It's not about constitutional law. It is about how do I solve the problem of people getting arrested for things they write on Facebook, which is not good. How do I solve that problem, right? It's not about Article 19(1)(a) or constitutional law, but it's about that problem. How do I solve the problem of air pollution in Ahmedabad? It's not about environmental law. How do I solve the problem? That's the kind of learner or researcher that is an andragogic learner. And finally, connected to your self-direction, it's not about getting published, getting a job, getting an internship, getting an O grade in your subject. Those things are good. And believe me, they will automatically come, right? A true andragogic learner is actually more motivated not by external rewards and punishments, but by, I actually feel better having done that work. I now understand things better. I'm able to smile because I now know something that was troubling me for a long time, right? And this is very difficult to internalize. For the longest time, and still it's there in my own personality, I'm still a little motivated by external things. How much money will I get for this? Will people give me success? Will enough people attend my webinar, right? But thankfully, after many, many years, I've moved where it doesn't matter if only 5 people attend the webinar, right? If I actually have a good conversation with 5 people and I learn something, I'm happy. Who cares about 5 versus 200? I don't, right? Who cares if my article is not published in Harvard and it's published in a local journal that I helped start in Bangalore? I am happy because I'm reaching the audience that I wanted to connect with, right? Let me move quickly now because I'm running out of time. Many of you all have difficulty in figuring out a problem. And this is the kind of question that troubles people who are at the start of their research journey. How do I start researching, right? You start researching, my friends, by fixing your eye on a research problem. And how do you find your research problem? You find your research problem by actually putting your phone away, closing Instagram, WhatsApp, Reddit, TikTok, all of that, sitting peacefully. Ideally, this is done in the morning when you're fresh. It's a good day. If you're next to a window, look out and just think, what are the topics in class or in college that I actually liked? Which ones did I find interesting? Which subjects do I actually like? Which subjects did I like in school? Hmm? Uh, would I like to actually read cases, or do I want to go out and talk to people, or do I want to use mapping software and map out a locality in my city, or do I want to carry out a survey of many, many people, or do I want to do what is called ethnographic research, which is just go and quietly blend in and see what's happening? What do I think? Do I want to do quantitative statistical modeling? Do I want to do computer simulation? Right? What do you think? Ask yourself that. What attracts you? Have there been any debates that you found exciting? Maybe in your jurisprudence class, your teacher told you about the law and morality debate, right? Maybe in your tort class, your teacher told you about the eggshell skull rule or volenti non fit injuria. If you get hit by a cricket ball when you're a spectator in a stadium, that is something you consented to. Or maybe you're interested in the basic structure of the constitution because Keshav Nand Bharati is a 1,000+ page case. Is there anything in your memory that you are interested by? Maybe you're interested by electronic contracts. How do contracts play out in the online world? Maybe you're interested in pornography. Should pornography be legal? Should recreational marijuana be legal? Maybe you're interested in the death penalty, right? Unless you give yourself the time to think, what am I interested in? I saw that on TV, that was interesting. You won't be able to identify that that is possibly a research problem for you, right? Is there something you read about? Is there a personal experience you had? Did you have a traumatic encounter? Is your friend or a family member suffering from some kind of ailment or condition, or did they have an encounter that connects to the law and to justice, right? Did you hear a story from someone? Is there something that you know has not been solved? A paradox, a problem? Is there a particular case study, the elephant that died in Kerala, that caught your attention? Sort of drones being used for terrorism purposes. Something, anything that caught your attention, a case study from a particular place. And finally, have you one day when you were thinking imaginatively thought of a new interpretation, a new theoretical idea? What would happen if actually in India we had a law that was not English law, if we actually decolonized our minds and came up with a truly Indian law? Would that be Hindu law? Would that be Dharmic law? Would that be tribal law? Can I write a research paper on a truly Indian legal jurisprudence? Asking yourself these questions will get you closer to the research problem, right? And not only you ask yourself these questions, but with a friend, with a teacher, with a colleague, with a parent, you make these questions into conversations. And I guarantee you, you will find your research problem, right? This is a very useful spreadsheet to get into the research question itself, right? And the research problem. What problem are you interested in? How do you break that problem down? What specific part of the topic are you interested in? Okay, air pollution in Ahmedabad, general problem. But specifically, why are laws in Ahmedabad on air pollution not implemented by the Pollution Control Board? Specific, right? Can you ask even more specific questions? What, who, when, where, why? What is the problem of air pollution? Who is responsible for air pollution in Ahmedabad? When did the air pollution problem start? Where is air pollution the most severe? Where is it least severe? Why is air pollution a persistent problem? Who is responsible for solving the problem? What might be the ways in which the problem are solved, right? Asking these questions are useful. Then this is the important step. Choose one and only one to be your main research question, right? Why is the Pollution Control Board of Gujarat unable to implement the laws relating to air pollution in the city of Ahmedabad? Right? And why or how questions are usually the best. How might a state pollution control board effectively implement the Air Pollution Act of 1972 or whatever? Make your question as clear and specific as possible. Again, specify who, what, where, when you're talking about. In the next 1 year, in the next 3 years, in the next 5 years. Clarify any vague words, good, better. What do you mean by good? What do you mean by better? Right? And finally, state your working thesis. And this often confuses the starter, that it does not matter if you're right or wrong, but come up with an answer that you think might be right. The Pollution Control Board is not able to implement the air pollution law because they do not have enough budget. I think that might be the right answer. It's okay if I'm wrong, but come up with a thesis. And through your research, you'll discover that you're right, or you'll discover that you're wrong, and you'll come up with a new thesis, right? Think about, is your topic feasible? Is it too broad? Is it too narrow? Do I have enough time? Am I competent to do it? If it requires you to have a degree in psychology and you don't have that degree, maybe you shouldn't focus on that topic. Are you located in the right place, right? If you're located in Mumbai and you're trying to study something in San Francisco that requires you to go and talk to people, doesn't make sense. Work on something in Mumbai. Ask yourself, will I enjoy working on it? Before you fix, be sure to read one good article minimum on that. And after you read it, ask yourself, if I make this my own topic, I read this article, will I enjoy it or will I get bored in 2 days? Right? Most important, perhaps the most important question or comment in this presentation, what is your purpose when undertaking the research? Right? What are you hoping to do? Are you hoping to clarify something? Are you hoping to answer a question? Are you hoping to come up with a sort of solution that the government would, in that sense, take note of? Are you hoping to change people's minds? Are you hoping to allow businesses to structure their contracts better? What is your purpose? Right? Think about that. And then get into, how can I plan the process for carrying out the research? Who will help me? What are the resources I need? What is my schedule? When will I actually work on it? Will I give 1 hour for it every day? Will I give 3 hours for it on Sunday? How will I maintain one diary of my progress? How will I save my PDF files? Will I only read first, or will I read and write together? Right? What will be my final output? Will it be a blog? Will it be a journal article? Will it not be anything? It'll just be, I'll have some ideas in my head that I'll tell my boss. Will it just be comments I mention to my students? Will it be arguments that go into my petition before the court? Will it be my strategy B before the judge, right? And what can I do with this final output, right? And as you'll see, some of you all have asked me about plagiarism, and this is a good moment to point out. Anytime you're using an idea that someone else has given you, credit them. And that's how you escape plagiarism checks. As long as you're honest and you credit a person, an article, an interview, a source that gave you the idea that you're using, you are not plagiarizing. You are showing academic integrity. And so a colleague who teaches with me, who I organize dissertation and research workshops with at Azim Premji University in Bangalore, gave me some of the points that are in this text. So I've credited her because I don't want to be plagiarizing her work without crediting her as the source for it. Now, remember, if you don't have courage to experiment, you're not a successful researcher, right? You need to experiment. You don't need to write the full journal article. Let me write one paragraph and experiment with that. I'll write one paragraph and share that one paragraph with my good friend and ask her to tell me, is this well written or not well written? I will not write a journal article straight off. Let me first write a 1,000-word blog post. I have always been so shy in my life. Let me today, for the first time, unmute myself and ask a question in a webinar. Let me experiment and raise my hand and ask my teacher a question, right? Unless you experiment and keep experimenting, you're not adopting a design thinking mindset. Remember the openness I mentioned at the start, right? So remember, your research project is an iterative project. You don't just plan everything in the beginning and then just implement. You plan, you begin implementing, you get feedback from your implementation, you discover that your assumptions were right or wrong, and you go back to the planning, you go back to the designing, right? And this loop of constantly experimenting, learning from the experiment, and taking the learnings into your design is what design thinking is all about, right? And I assure you, whatever you're doing, could be preparing for a case, it could be writing a brief for your boss at your internship, it could be teaching for a class, it could be writing an article, it could be even thinking for 2 minutes before you answer someone's question. If you have this mindset, you are guaranteed to be constantly getting better and better at what you're doing, which is a measure of success, right? Look at some good books. Maybe your teacher has told you this is a brilliant book. Maybe you've read a book that's brilliant, and look at it again, right? This is a book that I thought is very good. Can quotes bring about social change? And Professor Rosenberg apparently is working on the second edition that has a lot of focus on India as well. What is it about this book that made it a good book? What is the research? How did he answer this question of can quotes bring about social change? Did he just look at judgments? Did he look at, did he interview judges? What kind of timeline did he have in his study? How did he arrive at his conclusions? How did he define social change, right? So if you look at a good research output, but not just to understand what it's saying, but can I understand what is the design behind it? You get many great ideas. So I have a lot more to share, but I'm going to move fast. So I'm going to skip a few slides. There are these, if you go back to my slides ever, you'll find these 3 heavy duty slides. This is for an advanced workshop. If I had a day with you, I would have gone into these slides. But basic takeaway is there are many different kinds of research approaches. Qualitative, quantitative, and mixed methods we all know. But outside of that, there are more complicated philosophical methodologies, which depend on who you are and what you're trying to do. You might be trying to solve a problem, you might be trying to verify a theory, you might be trying to be political, you might be trying to actually just understand meaning, and that puts you in a particular worldview. which in a sense influences the kinds of methods you use. Do you use a survey? Do you use an ethnographic method? Do you ask closed questions or open questions? Do you work more with interpretation of text, or do you work more with statistical indicators of a particular state? Right? Everything depends on your worldview. And don't worry if you don't know your worldview. I guarantee you that you will come to know it. As you practice more, it will become clear to you that I am more interested in qualitative and I'm not so interested in quantitative. Or I am more interested in quantitative, qualitative is kuch bhi chalta hai, right? Anything goes. But if you're in an early stage of your career, experiment. Try both qualitative and quantitative. Adopt a mixed method approach. This is an example of my own research project. One person who attended this webinar said, can you show us how you came up with a design, right? So I was commissioned by an organization to research into artificial intelligence. And this is how I created my design. I stated my research problem. There is disagreement and lack of clarity on how to think of artificial intelligence and ethics. I came up with my main question: how might we govern AI in India? I came up with many sub-questions. I came up with an initial hypothesis or a thesis. Maybe constitutional ethics should guide the governance of AI. I came up with a detailed methodology. If you'll see my own method, I am a very unconventional methodological person. I use all the methods. I'm not qualitative, I'm not quantitative, I'm not only legal, I use philosophy, I use political science, so I'm interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary. I'm interested in context, right? And finally, I ended my design bit with, why is this research important? Right? It will help education. It will help actually business strategy. It will help in policy formulation. It will help lawyers in cases involving artificial intelligence. It will help in other researchers interested in technology, law, regulation, governance research, right? So that's how a detailed research design looks when it's described. And as an activity for you after this webinar, go back and try and on these 3 points, write 1 to 2 sentences. What is my overall approach to the research? Identify one project that you're doing or you're interested in doing. What might be your overall approach? Why are you trying to do it? What are your assumptions? Slightly more specific, what is your method? What are your tools and techniques? Will you just be reading cases? Will you be using a survey? Will you be using some statistical software and tools like R and NVivo, Stata? And identify your scope and boundaries. I'm only looking at these 5 years. I'm only looking at India. I'm only looking at judgments. I'm only looking at Karnataka or Gujarat or Maharashtra. I'm only looking at cases relating to women. I'm only looking at cases relating to caste. What are the scope and boundaries of your project? Try it out as an activity, as homework if you wish. So what will your results be like, right? My suggestion is almost like a potter making a wheel. It is an art, and it requires an artistic attention. It's important to think of what is academic writing, what is good academic writing, what is good legal writing. I'm really now running late on time, so time to move faster. Your rubric for what is successful will depend on what you're trying to do, right? For example, when I have a course and I ask my students to write an essay, let's say, I tell them that their submissions will be marked on authenticity, originality, persuasiveness, creativity, right? And so as if I was my own student, I would try to make sure that my product matches these rubrics. The problem in life is that quite often we don't know the rubrics. And so if you can get the rubrics, if you can ask your teacher, on what basis are you going to grade my assignment? But if you're applying for a competition or a job, you will find somewhere there the information. applications will be evaluated based on, articles will be assessed based on, right? And that is very important to shape your final pot or your final product. So don't ignore that bit. Even if you're going for a job interview, ask, if you can, if it's possible, what are the criteria for selection? Hmm? Remember, when you're writing, it's almost like you're going to a party, right? Party started at 7 o'clock, you turn up at 9:30, you're fashionably late. 2.5 hours after the party has started, many things have happened. Some people have eaten, some people have come, some people have gone, but the people who are there are all already talking to each other, right? When you enter the party, you go, you say hi, hello, kya chal raha hai, da 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 da. You eat some chips or whatever. If you drink, you have a beer or wine, blah blah blah. You eat dinner and you leave, right? Academic writing is like that. For almost 2,500 years before you, people have been writing, and for many years after you, people will write, right? You, when you write to publish, are writing as someone who's entering that party and will have to leave that party, right? So it's important for you to know who was there before you and who might come after you. Hmm? The best trick, the shortcut, someone wanted shortcuts. The best way to actually write is to think of it in terms of they said and I say. So Ratan Lal and Dheeraj Lal on Tot say blah 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 blah. Jabwala on Tot says blah 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 blah. My teacher says blah 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 blah. I say, however, that the thought of negligence has more potential to deter wrongful behavior in India. They say blah 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 blah. The Supreme Court in so and so decision in year so and so said blah 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 blah, and you say it in your writing. I say that the Supreme Court actually ignored so and so consideration. I say that the Supreme Court's decision is brilliant. I say that Judge so and so was at her best, right? They say, I say, they say, I say. That is the basic essence of legal writing and academic writing in general. There are many nuanced ways of doing it. I just told you the simplest. They say, I say, right? But here you see a template. In recent discussions of the right to euthanasia, a controversial issue has been whether people who are depressed should be allowed to kill themselves. On the one hand, some argue that every person has the right to take their own life. From this perspective, euthanasia should be legal. On the other hand, however, others argue that suicide is always immoral. In the words of this view's main proponents, euthanasia should be banned. According to this view, blah, blah, blah. And you see how this goes, right? There are sophisticated, elegant ways of doing the they said, I said. Where to publish? Students love asking this question in particular. And the answer, my friends, is there is no answer. Publish where your research purpose is achieved, right? It depends on what you're trying to do with your research. Publish where the authors you cite are getting published. If you're citing, let's say, Mr. Gautam Bhatia on constitutional law, right? Maybe you want to publish in the same journals where he's publishing, right? If you are citing, let's say, Jules Coleman on tort law, publish where he's publishing, right? That's your highest target. Publish where your readers will be interested in your work, right? You're working on how to solve air pollution in Ahmedabad, and you're publishing in some obscure journal that is read only in Southern California. Doesn't make sense. You need to publish where your research might be noticed by people to whom it matters. Maybe a government official in Gujarat will read your research, and or maybe a researcher will read your research and use it in a submission to the government official. And finally, publish where it will look good in your CV. Understand what are good journals and what are bad journals. Don't pay somebody money to publish in a journal which does not have any value whatsoever, where where a good interviewer or a good teacher will see that ye naam ke vaste, it's simply been published there. There's no value there, right? And these three sort of URLs, Scopus, the Master Journal List, and the University Grants Commission of India, their website on academic research, they have detailed lists of journals, right? The UGC has at least 6 recognized law journals for India. Scopus, you'll find 600 plus journals from across the world, right? Similarly, the Master Journal List, many hundreds of journals. And any of these journals is a good place to publish because remember, practice makes perfect. Remember, verbal presenting is as important as writing. And though I don't have time to get into it in this session, a good researcher also works on verbal presentation. I don't have time to give this person who I'm meeting suddenly, randomly, I met this person in an airport. But this person can give me the best possible job that I've always dreamed of. I have only 5 minutes. I can't give them an article. They don't look like they will feel comfortable if I ask them, sir, can you give me your email or phone number? I have 5 minutes to make an impact. I've written 10,000 words in my article. How do I, in 5 minutes, communicate those 10,000 words so that it impresses that person? And this, again, like making that pot is an art, right? And you'll find many resources online about how to be a good presenter, not only for legal research, but for all kinds of research, right? Loving to learn is the final part of the puzzle. Remember that there are different types of learning. You can be doing things better. You can be doing better things. And finally, transformatively, you can be seeing things differently. Doing things better is let me spend less time being distracted on TikTok and let me actually read without the TV on. Doing better things might be let me actually find the best free online course and attend that because I've done my research into who's taking the course. It's not some average mediocre course, but it's an exceptional course. And seeing things differently would be, let me actually go out into my neighborhood and attempt a mini project that I can also convert into an article. You're just seeing yourself as a researcher totally differently. The 21st century learner and the successful researcher doesn't just have knowledge, but has skills of creativity, critical thinking, communication, and collaboration, and has character, mindfulness, curiosity, courage, ethics, and leadership, right? So knowledge plus skills plus character all together are required for a successful 21st century learner and are required for a successful researcher. Your career options as a researcher are potentially endless, right? You can do the standard things that law graduates do or lawyers do. You can go to court, you can join a law firm, but you can sort of join an international organization, you can join a business, you can join a startup, you can join a publishing house, you can become an independent legal researcher like I am, or a consultant. You can, in a sense, be attached to government policy think tanks. You can join community and do work on the ground. You can, of course, become a teacher, including a teacher at the university level. If you've got the sense of a successful researcher as I mean it, the world is your oyster. You can do anything in that sense because you basically have the knowledge to solve problems and to recognize opportunities. I designed a course for Law Octopus on legal research and writing, as part of which we put together 60 resources that will help you develop your own understanding of legal research and writing. Mr. Tanuj Kalia very kindly made this available for free, though the legal research and writing course is a prized course. And I would urge you, if you're interested in this, you might be a teacher of research and writing, you might be a student who wants to really understand this well, to access these resources and read them, including resources on journals, how to present well. All of these are available in these 60 resource lists. That's it. Thanks for your patience. That took longer than I anticipated, but I hope it was useful for some. Comments and feedback are always mentioned. Constructive criticism is also mentioned. Please don't tell me I should trim my beard or something like that. Actually, if you want to, you can, but if you have constructive criticism on how my webinar or the session could be organized better, as a good uh, researcher, I'll be open to that, and I'll try and employ it next time round. So let me hand it back now to either Mr. Harsh or Ms. Mitsu, and let's get into some question answer.
Thank you so much, Mr. Naik. That was a wonderful session, and I'm sure everyone will agree with me. And I'm not sure about everyone else, but I learned a lot from you. It was indeed a pleasure having you with us. Looking forward to many more webinars with you and learning.
Thank you.
Um, at the end, I would like to request everyone to fill out the feedback form. We'll share that with Mr. Abhayraj Naik as well. And we are going to publish the PPT and this recording as well, most probably next couple of days. And if not in couple of days, then this week only. Thank you so much. I know we are in shortage of time. Do you have time to take some questions? Okay.
Sorry, I'm muted. I definitely have time to take questions because I promised that I would have time to take questions. So without that, the session will not be complete for me. Ms. Mitsu, does it make sense for me to just respond to one or two of the questions that I see in the Q&A box?
Definitely so.
Okay, so I think one very good question that someone who has attended anonymously has asked, which is a difficult question, is how do you get motivated in the first place, right? And that's actually not a simple question at all. It's a complicated question. How do you get motivated? And the way in which you get motivated is by spending some time with, in my opinion, and there are many different ways of thinking about this. There's a beautiful book called The Tao of Motivation. I'll just type it into the chat box for those of y'all who are interested. The Tao of Motivation for deeper research. But one way in which you get motivated is by actually thinking of what your dreams and aspirations were some time back, and what you're actually doing right now, and where along the way you sort of lost your path, or you got too busy, or the world was too difficult for you. And just sort of breathe deeply and say to yourself, what if I resurrect those dreams again? What will happen, right? And this takes you to the second way in which you motivate yourself. You visualize what will happen if you are successful in what you're thinking about. So you visualize, acha, so I'll work really hard for 6 months, and I'll just do the best research I've ever done on this topic, and I'll listen to what Abhay said, and I'll actually try and publish in the best journal in the world on this topic. Harvard Journal of Law and Technology actually accepts submissions from anyone in the world. And my piece is on technology. I'm interested. I'll send it to them. And I will actually get published in Harvard, the Journal of Law and Technology. And that will mean that I will get admitted into Harvard when I apply for an LLM. And that will mean that I'll have my dream of learning from so-and-so professor on business law. And that will mean that I'll end up working in that beautiful law firm in London, New York, Paris, wherever. And that will mean that if you do a little bit of that visual, don't keep dreaming, stop then. that will motivate you that it's worth it. So that's one way in which you can get motivated. And you don't have to do it like this. You can even motivate yourself by visualizing small, right? I'll get good grades. My parents will feel happy. I will actually be able to improve the quality of society. These are different kinds of techniques to motivate yourself. The final point is, the best way to motivate yourself is to hang out with the right kind of motivating people. Hmm? So the company you keep and your community is important, because people who are always telling you, "Arey yaar, no problem, the teacher anyway doesn't read the project, just copy it and submit it, you'll get your marks, and uh, don't bother, continue on Netflix or playing my video game," that kind of person is not a good influence actually in terms of motivating you to do your best. Because who knows, maybe you are going to be the next Nani Palkiwala, or you are going to be the next Indra Jaisingh, or you are going to be the next Socrates, Mahatma Gandhi. We don't know. And if someone had not motivated Gandhi when he was young, he wouldn't have been what he became, right? So company is also important. I hope, sir, that Miss, that helps in answering your question. Another question I saw in the Q&A box was a question about from Ikra Khan, which is, how can we add something new to research? And it's a good question. That is, if I'm adding something new, then I'm adding something to previous literature, then how is it actually new, right? And Ikra, the reality is, most things are not new in the sense that they're coming straight out of outer space and brand new, like an alien, right? It's Isaac Newton who famously said, whatever we do it because we have the ability to stand on the shoulders of giants, right? So all the people whose books we've read, the great constitutional lawyers of India, the great authors, whichever subject you're looking at, let's say a Gower on corporate law, Winfield on tort law, an Anson on contract law, a Sirvai on constitutional law, right? Uh, a Benyon on statutory interpretation, a G.P. Singh on statutory. These are great books. And when we do good research, we do it because of these great books. They're standing on the shoulders of these great authors. But that said, it is always possible to do something new in the sense that old knowledge needs to actually solve new problems. That's one kind of newness, right? Second, sometimes the old knowledge is not fully complete. There is a gap. There is one thing that has not been answered. Third, what applied and what has been answered in one place has not been tested in another place, right? So there is always space for something new. And referring to old work is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's a required thing. That is what it means by doing a literature review. You're reviewing the writing on your area of research. But having done that, can you add something slightly different? Maybe what you are referring to is about India. Can you add something which is about Lucknow? From the national, you have brought it to the city level. Or maybe what you read was about human rights and freedom and justice. Can you bring a gender perspective to it, which wasn't there earlier? And that's the different ways in which we add something new. But thank you, it's a good question. So I think I got the two questions in, yeah, Mr. Roshan's question is, publication or research journal or contributing chapter, which is good, which is better as an academician? Mr. Roshan, I would say both are good in different ways. Journals usually have the more chance of being seen by more people, especially if they are available on JSTOR or Hein Online or even open access on the internet, on an open access press. Books which are not open access are usually not seen by enough people. They're only people can buy the book or if it's in a library, right? That's one thing to keep in mind. Second thing is books have their own value. Hmm? Being published as a chapter in a book has value if the editors of that book is good, if the other contributing authors are good, right? Uh, then you having a chapter in that book means that it's likely that you will be seen in that same community. So a book might be good there. Everything gets specific. Who is publishing the book? Is it a world-class publisher, or is it nowadays anyone can publish a book, right? So is the publisher of the book good? Is the journal good? Is it a recognized journal? So I would say both formats, have value. A journal publication will usually happen quicker. Okay, so a journal publication, you can give it 6 months to maximum a year from the time you start to the time it comes out. Maybe a year and 2 months maximum. A book publication from the time you start to the time it's published can sometimes go into 2 or 3 years. For example, I started a chapter on with my partner on law, animals, and violence, and I started in 2015. And believe it or not, the book got published in 2020. So it took 5 years for that chapter to come out. But it's a good book. It's from Oxford University Press. It's on law and violence in India. Good people, including Professor Bakshi, have also written there. So it was worth the wait. I mean, I'm not complaining. I enjoyed that effort. So I hope I've answered your question, Roshan. And yes, I think with that, the three sort of questions, substantive questions have been answered. I'm not sure about the attendance marking business. I think Ms. Mitsu and colleagues would have clarified that for you. Any other questions, Ms. Mitsu, Mr. Harsh?
One question which everyone would like to they ask us is that if as a beginner, should we start writing blogs and then move on to research paper?
Thank you for that question. I would say there is no hard and fast rule, but it makes sense to just write one blog and see what happens, because you can do it very quickly. You can almost do it in 1 day if you, or 2 days if you want to, right? Maybe 2 days. I would advise you to at least give it a week, but there's nothing to lose in publishing a blog, and see what happens through the experience. What did you feel? What feedback did you get on your final product? What did you learn? So I would certainly say it doesn't hurt at all. And doing it will sort of, in that design thinking mindset, it's a quick experiment. You'll immediately get some feedback based on your experience. That is, my writing, what I really struggle with is I don't know how to structure my piece, or my problem here is I come up with so many ideas, but I don't know how to put all those ideas into a short piece. Everything is there. Or I don't know how to end. I don't know how to start. I don't know how to cite. I don't know my citation formats. I don't know what's the difference between the Blue Book format of citation and the Harvard format of citation and the Chicago format of citation and the Oxford format of citation and the modern format, right? So you learn things by even doing the blog piece that might come much slower if you try to do a full research article. But I don't think there's any problem in even doing both together. The blog piece will finish fast. The research article can take its own time. And this reminds me, so thanks for the question. Some of y'all are always curious about citation, right? And the thing is, citations are easy to pick up because there are easy guides online to just tell you the essence of citation, right? So I like to use the Chicago Manual of Style to cite. Though many legal researchers don't use that, it's used more by other social sciences and humanities researchers, right? For legal researchers, the Harvard Blue Book style is easy. And how do you learn how to cite well? It's a three-step process. First, go and download a citation guide, a good one, the Oxford or the Harvard or the Chicago or the Modern. It's just 5 or 6 pages, the abridged version. Download that. Second, when you're writing something, whatever you're writing, follow the citation guide to the T. So if the citation guide says first you put last name of author, when you cite in your blog or your article or your project, do exactly that. Third, compare your final product with the guide, not immediately, but after 1-2 months have passed, and see whether there was still any discrepancy, right? If you follow this three-step process and you keep doing it, you'll automatically pick up citation. And you should not worry about citation. It's not difficult at all, but you should be determined and you should have grit and you should be disciplined about citation. Never, so some students have this lazy habit. They'll just put the website. They won't put the name of the piece. They won't put when it's published. They won't put the name of the author. They won't put when it's accessed, right? So avoid that laziness. Be disciplined. Whenever you put in a website, put full bibliographic detail as your citation guide tells you. Thanks, though. I could just cover that area that had slipped my mind. Anything else, Ms. Mitsu?
There are many questions, but one thing I see the most is that how do we make sure at the end of the writing that how do we check our own plagiarism?
Thank you. It's a good question. I saw it in the initial set as well. So I partly answered this, but thank you. You've given me an opportunity to again respond to it. Nowadays, there's an increasing trend that students are using Turnitin or other free anti-plagiarism software to constantly check their writing, right? And it's a dangerous trend because it's actually not good for you as a legal researcher to keep doing that, because it structures your thinking and writing in particular ways. If you follow the mantra, and the mantra is this: every time I am using someone else's idea, I will cite it. If you follow that mantra, you will never ever run afoul of plagiarism rules, right? Every time I use someone else's idea, it could be your mother, it could be your father, it could be your friend, it could be that article, it could be your teacher, it could be a report, it could be the newspaper. But every time you use someone else's idea, you cite it, right? If you have a doubt, better to cite, right? And if you do that, you don't need to check. You don't need any Turnitin or other software. You will not be running afoul of plagiarism. The other pointer I'll give you, the minute you take exact words from somewhere, if it's more than a few words, if it's more than 3 or 5 words, if you're taking the exact words, always put it in double quotes and cite. Either put a footnote or put bracket reference, but a citation has to come in, a reference has to come in, right? If you're taking blocks of word, on both sides, it should be in double quotes. If you do these things, you don't need any other check, because you automatically know that you have cited everything you relied upon.
Thank you so much. I don't think we have any more time. We would love to have another session with you, because as I see the questions, I think you can take an entire lecture on each and every question. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Ms. Mitsu. Yes, I think it is a topic which has a possibility of never-ending learning. So it requires a lot more time than we had today, but hopefully everyone has become a bit of an andragogical learner, so they know how to answer their questions themselves now. And that's the hope I'll pass on to everyone else here. Yes, Ms. Mitsu.
Yes, thank you so much for being here with us and taking this wonderful seminar. We look forward to having you with us. And attendance, questions, everything has been given in the link. And still, if you guys have any question or query, or you want to ask question to Sir himself, then please let us know. And if you cannot open the attendance or feedback form, then also please either email us or WhatsApp us on the number provided on the website. And once again, we are going to publish the lecture and PPT with Sir's permission on our website soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mitsu. Thank you, Harsh. And thank you, World of Legal Research. And thank you to each one of you who spent a lot of time and have still stayed. I see 130 people are still here at the end of almost 90 minutes without break. Thanks to everyone who made this very successful for me.
And at the end, I would also like to thank Harsh Masik. He's a research associate with us, and like it's majorly his work. He has worked very hard for this thing. And Shubham Vijay, he has done all the marketing, publicity, advertisement, and everything. And Dr. Smith, who introduced Sir as well. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And I would like to end the session. Please allow us, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Take care. Good night, everyone. Bye.